welcome to this webinar on how to go from 0 processes to followed by all in no more than 2 weeks. I know it kind of sounds unbelievable, but we have done this hundreds, if not thousands of times with others. And today I'm going to share you the blueprint to do something that you've probably delayed for months, if not years, something that's been passed on from one rock to another, passed on ownership from one person to another. We've got the proven process to get this done in 2 weeks. There is obviously some work that needs to be done. I know this is not always the most exciting work that you're looking forward to, but we're going to make it as simple as possible for you. We're going to outline which steps to take, who to involve, obviously what the benefits are. Hopefully most of you watching this are already convinced of why you need documented processes and why you need them to be followed by all in your business, but we'll touch a little bit on that as well. And so hopefully at the end of this 30 to 45 minutes, you'll have something to take back to your team, get started once and for all on the process components, and get that consistency and scale you want in your business. Before I dive into it, my name is Gary. I'm the CEO of Whale. Whale is a process documentation and training software. We help companies that run on EOS with the process components. And obviously everything I detail out here is also achievable, if not even better, in Whale. But you can do this completely separate from the software as well if you wanted to. This blueprint that I'll go through is designed to be a standalone item that you can use with or without our software. Besides being the visionary at Whale, I'm also a process fanatic. So I've got a little bit of an integrator in myself as well. I do like to be in the nitty-gritty of processes at sometimes. And besides that, I'm a father of 2 little gremlins, 2 daughters, which keep me busy between the working hours. So let's get into it. The name of the game, why do you need processes? It all centers around consistency. Ultimately, you want consistency for multiple reasons. You want to have it as you hire and attract new people, so they get onboarded and trained the same way. So they feel welcomed, they feel supported, and that they want to stick around in your company. You want consistency for, obviously, your clients. You want the same experience over and over again. No matter who's serving your customers, you want them to give them the best possible quality and outcome that you have. You want consistency because it will help you grow and scale your business. You want consistency for a lot of reasons. So this is really at the center of why you want processes documented and followed by all. But to get there, you need a couple of things to build consistency in your team and in your business. Obviously, you need to have your processes identified. You need to know how you want to run your operations and how you want your teams to align with them. After you've got them identified, you want to document them so you can share them with your team so they can actually consume that information and make it their own. Obviously, you want training, not only for new hires that kind of need to learn the ropes of how you do things, but also for your existing staff members. Often overlooked, your business evolves. How do you keep your existing staff aligned with those changes? So ongoing training is a big portion of this. Obviously, measurement. Are people actually aligning with those processes? Are they doing what they have been trained on? And so it's a lot to do. Again, we're going to talk about how to do all of this within 2 weeks. We're going to keep it super simple. We're going to give you the step-by-step guides in 14 days. And obviously, you do not need to do this alone. The blueprint that we're sharing here works best if you collaborate with others on your team. So get your other leadership members on board, get them to join this program, get them to watch this recording, because the more people that help you in this, the better the outcome is going to be. So it all sounds great, right? I'm going to have processes, I'm going to have them documented, I'm going to have them shared, people are going to get trained, and ultimately it's going to help me scale my business. Sure, Probably all of you already knew this, so why haven't you gotten around to it? Well, the top three things we keep hearing is you don't really know where to start, right? Like it seems like a lot of work, it seems like this huge mountain that you need to overcome, and you just not know which way to get going. So we'll talk a little bit about what the first things you want to do. Second, you struggle to involve others. I know I just said let's get as many people involved as you can, but sometimes you're hit with some reluctancy. You're hit with, yeah, but I've got other priorities, etc. There's enough excuses to go around. So again, the more the merrier, but we'll explain to you who you want to involve and when. And finally, you talk about the number one excuse we keep hearing, you're probably telling yourself, is I never have time, right? There's always that other thing on your to-do list that has just a little bit more priority. There's always some fire that needs to be put out. There's always something else, and you do not find the time. And again, I get it. Process documentation is not the sexiest thing around in your business. It's not something that you wake up and go, woohoo, process documentation today. That's what I've been waiting for. We get it. And so we'll, again, explain to you what the fastest way to get there. So we're going to share tips and tricks, hacks, best practices to get this done in an as efficient and effective way possible. So how do we get there? A simple game plan. We've built this blueprint that resolves around three core aspects, and this turns into what we call the flywheel effect. So the three elements that we're going to talk about today is first, document. Makes sense. Second one is train, and the third one is manage. And once you've got that flywheel figured out, once you get the flywheel to turn, that's how you get to that consistent level, and that's how you're going to fuel growth for your team and for your business. And so these three things, which are very simple, sometimes hard to do, but this is what we're going to explain to you today, how to incorporate that in your day-to-day operations, because this is not a one and done kind of thing. If you're going to get started with process documentation, you need to think at this for the long haul, because again, your business is going to change, it's going to evolve, and you need to make sure that everything evolves as well. Great, so the blueprint is going to help you get started, but the blueprint is also going to make sure that you keep it up over time. And since it's very simple, it's going to be very easy to remember and to keep in check. Whale loves EOS. We're a big fan. We run on EOS as well. We love everything about the framework, and obviously we very much love the process component. And so Whale as a business, Whale as a team, Whale as a software company, its services resolve very closely to the EOS process components. So when I talk about our blueprint, it's actually very tightly aligned with what EOS talks about. And so EOS will talk about identifying your core processes. We'll talk about documenting, packaging, and then having them followed by all. So if you look at it, the three things that we mentioned just before, document, train, and manage, kind of all reflect in the process component itself as well. So no need to worry. There's a lot of overlap between how we look at things and how EOS wants you to tackle and get a grip on your processes. So great, let's get started. Here's a very quick outline of the milestones we'll work towards too. So again, I said 2 weeks, by which I mean not having to work in weekends. Just 10 business days will get you to go around the flywheel at least once. And again, the first time is probably the hardest one. Getting around document, train, and manage in 14 days seems like almost an impossible task. But again, we'll show you how to get there. But once you've gone through it once, it gets much easier to go through it again. And so the way I want you to look at this is your complete business does not need to go around the flywheel at the same time. You can go through the document, train, manage exercise per team, per department, or even per core process. And you can have different velocities. Maybe you'll get it done in 10 days. Maybe others will take 2 months to get there. It doesn't matter. As long as you get started, as long as you start the flywheel journey, it's going to start spinning and it's going to start accelerating and fueling that growth for you. But typically, this is going to be your outline. We're going to focus on the documentation side of things for the first 6 days. On day 7 and 8, we'll talk about training. And on day 9 and 10 on how to manage all of this within your team and company. So step 1, documentation. It is the hardest one. It is the one that takes most time, most dedication, and typically involves the most people to get the work done. Day 1 is pretty easy. It's all around setting goals. What do you want to achieve the first time you go around that flywheel? What is the number one priority that you want processes documented in your company, have them shared and followed by all? And we've identified 4 goals, 4 methods, if you will, to really focus on. The first one is what most companies who are looking at this webinar and who run on EOS will probably want is your core processes, right? You want to have clarity on how your business functions in the different departments and in the different teams of your business. So focusing on just core processes with the outcome of company-wide clarity is one goal that you might want to set with your first journey around the flywheel. The second one is delegation. Maybe you feel overwhelmed. Maybe you feel like you need to delegate more so you can elevate yourself to more valuable work. Well, being able to offload work starts with, knowing what work you want to offload and then document it so you can share that more efficiently and someone else can take the helm on what do you want them done. Number 3 is reduce mistakes. Focus on operational excellence. Maybe you're getting more and more complaints. Maybe you see more mistakes being made by different people in different teams. So tightening up things on that end is definitely something you can focus on as well if you feel that that is priority number 1. Or finally, maybe you're going through a growth spurt. Maybe you're hiring a lot of people and you need a better way to onboard and train them. You want it more streamlined, you want it more consistent, and you want to reduce the time it takes to ramp them up so they can start doing the tasks that they were assigned to. So the new hire methods to reduce ramp up time is typically number 4 in the list of the goals that you want to set. So like I shared earlier, you can have different teams go through the flywheel separately, which also means that they might have different goals. You might want to align the first time around to maybe get to the same goal. Maybe, again, you want to start with company-wide clarity and you want each team to go and identify their core processes. That's great, but feel free to have each team pick their own. So we've gone through day 1, we've identified our goal. Let's go through day 2, which is identify the core. And you'll see that in most of these examples, I've used the core process methods, again, assuming that a lot of companies that run on EOS need to get that done first. So a couple of tips when you're identifying your core processes. How do you get there? First of all, most businesses do not have more than 10 core processes. So if you end up with a list of 20, you've probably gone too far. Really think about, is this one of the core things that our business resolves around? You're going to have things that always come back. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. You're going to have probably an HR process, a sales process, a marketing process, a finance process, etc. Where it tends to go a little bit different for different industries is which operations process you have. One might have just one. If you're in construction, maybe you have 2 or 3. So that's where you'll need to think about which really are a core process and centers around your business. The tip that I want to give you is that you need to agree on a single name. As a leadership team, as you go and identify those core processes, make sure that everyone agrees that you're going to call it, for example, the HR process and not the people process. Why? Because it's going to create confusion for your team members as you speak about these processes and procedures. If you're referring it to differently, it's obviously not something you want. Second is assign a process owner for each core process. Make sure there's ownership on who is ultimately accountable for this process in our business. And I'm not just talking about documentation, but I'm talking about who's owner of the actual process. What if the process breaks, fails? Who is the person that we're looking at to come up with a solution? And finally, add a short description for each process. Again, it helps with the thing I mentioned before, clarity. Agree on a single name and give it a short description so there's no confusion on what you're talking about. And what you're going to end up with is a list of 5 to 10 core processes, clearly labeled with a short description and with an owner attached to it. So all of this seems simple enough, right? Day 1, what goals are we focusing on? Day 2, agree on the single names of these core processes, owner, and short description. Great. Let's move on to day 3. A big challenge when it comes to documentation is we tend to not know at what level of detail to stop. The answer is almost always stay high level. You're probably looking at this from too much depth already. And so we tend to want to go into the nitty gritty and really detail everything, but that's not necessary. I'll assume that you've hired competent people, which can kind of figure things out on their own. What they'll probably need is just some guardrails, a direction in which you want them to steer. And that's what I'm talking about when we say map the 20%. Make sure that they understand what direction they're going into, make sure there's guardrails, and just tell them what the end point is, how to get from A to B. Let them decide on which lane they want to ride, what car they want to drive. Basically give them some freedom to decide how to operate within those guidelines. So to map the 20%, again, this involves maybe other team members, which we call subject matter experts. Maybe you've got a senior staff member who's been around for 20 years and really understands this process through and through. He might not be finally accountable, your process owner is, which could be the leadership team member, but your subject matter experts has probably a lot of valuable information in their heads. So you want to involve them as well and assign them their own major steps. So each process, again, has 5 to 15 major steps. I've got an example here. Core process being, for example, HR, and then the 5 to 15 major steps could be how you source candidates, how you do interviews, how you hire people, how you orient them, how you train them. So the big chunks within that process is what we refer to as major steps. Again, how you get to the 20% is by focusing on the common and repeatable. So do not look at edge cases. Do not look at things that happens once every blue moon. Just look at the things that repeat itself over and over again and focus on those things. And again, keep it short and concise. Make sure that people very easily understand that, sourcing means how to source candidates. Interviewing, again, speaks for itself. Just use common terminology within your business to map that 20%. And the outcome is going to be a subsequent level of documentation that you've already have built out. So you've gone from core processes like marketing and HR, and then you've gone to major steps like interviewing, hiring, training, etc. Awesome. Day 3 is done. Let's get to day 4, which is all about preparation. Here's a couple of things I want you to do before you actually get to writing instructions and details in your processes. First of all is make a glossary of common terminology. I've said this a couple of times already, but I'll repeat it because it is important. If everyone refers to the same things and with the same words, it's going to avoid a lot of confusion and mistakes over time. So maybe highlight the top 10, 15 common terminologies that you use within your team and businesses. Document those as well so everyone knows that when you refer to a client, you're talking about clients and not customers or partners or anything else. Second is build a template to define what goods look like. This is actually going to help you avoid to go into too much detail as well. If you develop a template with, hey, this is a boilerplate of how I want documentation in our business to look like, and I want everyone to use this template, that's the outcome you're going to have. Again, it's going to help with consistency as well, because everyone is going to document the same way. It's going to look the same, and it's going to save them time as well, because they're not going to have to recreate that structure and outline from the start. The third one is settle on a style guide. Seems silly, but just getting to an agreement on which font you're going to use, which kind of style of headers you're going to use, is again going to help with consistency, make it visually appealing, and just make it agreeable on those who need to consume it, that it doesn't look like a sketchbook of your 4-year-old. So we talked about identifying your subject matter experts. Make sure that that is done. And finally, set a due date and timeline. Make sure there's accountability on who's going to do what. Where your process owners are accountable for the ultimate process itself, your subject matter experts are going to be accountable for helping you document and over time maintain the documentation itself. So assign their names, make sure there's a to-do and a timeline, and that you work towards a specific goal. FYI, in attachment, there is a worksheet that you can use to identify your subject matter experts per major steps, set deadlines, to-dos. So we have a worksheet for you that you can use to get things going. All right, day 5 has come. This is the one where you add the instructions. You add the guidelines, the best practices, the tips and tricks within those major steps. A couple of tips and tricks. Use technology. There's great software out there like Whale is, but others as well that will help you document with video. It will help you do screen recordings. It will help you record things step by step by capturing screenshots and transcribing text. Let technology do the heavy lifting. It is there for you to use. Do not think that documentation need to be a 270-page manual, operational manual that's all text and that probably nobody's going to read. So use it. Leverage what you already have. Maybe you've got some presentations. Maybe you've got some checklists already built. They might be in a Google Drive or a OneDrive somewhere. It might be just on your computer that no one has access to. But use that. If you've gone through some of this work, leverage that and use it and attach it to this exercise. Again, avoid going into too much detail. Keep it high level. Think guardrails going from A to B. And collaborate with others on your team. Ask input from the team that you're documenting for. You've got your subject matter experts involved. They know their stuff, but maybe more junior and meet-your staff have great feedback. Maybe they have great input. Maybe they're seeing something that you're not seeing. And getting their feedback early on is going to help you level up your documentation very quickly. So the way I want you to look at this is core processes, level 1. Let's take HR again. Level 2, major steps. The subsequent big process and procedures that you want people to know about. The third level, the one we just spoke about, are instructions. What is that additional detail? What is that additional couple of best practices, guidelines, maybe video material that you want to share with them so they truly understand how you want things done in your business? Once you have those 3 levels done, basically you're ready with documentation. And it does not need to take more than 5 days' time. In 5 days, you can have all of these levels built out. Again, the more people you involve, the easier it's going to be because you can share some of those, some of that workload. So ultimately, all you need to do in day 6 is package it. However, as a bonus, I'm going to tell you how to save even more time. So I talked about technology, and I'll talk about a couple of others in this segment that will save you time. But I'm going to reiterate that having a template is going to save you a lot of time. What I always suggest as a pretty easy template is have a purpose, have the steps of your procedures outlined, and have a section for additional resources, something you want to link and branch to. You'll have an example of this template in your worksheet as well, so if you want to use that, be our guest. I said it before, the screen recorder. So if you've got a lot of online processes that you want to share with your team, basically go through that process like you would always do, talk over it, and click save. And you'll have a recorded, documented process, which didn't take you a lot of time. Maybe it took you 30 seconds to go through it, and you've got something visual to share with your team. One of my favorites is called the junior transfer. If you're going through that hiring spurt, if you've got new people joining your team and you feel like I don't have time before they start to actually get a lot of this documentation built, when you sit with them, when you're onboarding them and training them, probably they're sitting next to you and you're show and telling them how to do things, ask them to actually document it while you explain it. Is going to help for two reasons. First of all, it's going to help them remember this more easily because they're writing things down, which gets into the long-term retention part of your brain a little bit easier. And second, they're going to have a first draft of that documentation built for you that you can repurpose for new hires after. And finally, the AI assistants. Unless you've been living under a rock, everyone saw the possibilities and the magic of ChatGPT. Turn to these kind of softwares to help you draft first versions of processes and procedures that you want in your business. They're going to do a great job. Again, Whale has its own AI assistant that will help you write a policy or procedure in under 30 seconds, and all you need to do is modify it so it matches your needs and your specifics. Awesome. Day 6, packaging. Find a central place where you can put all of this information. I can't tell you how many businesses I've seen who've created great documentation with video, with text, with imagery. It looks beautiful and no one knows where it is. Either it's scattered all over the place or it's just not very accessible. So just make sure that people know where to turn to when they need information and where they can find specific material. A couple of tips I want to share here as well, besides obviously centralization and packaging, is define access levels. Not everyone needs to see everything. If I'm in sales, do not necessarily need to know how I'm going to source candidates. I might not need to know how our financial process looks like. Not because it's restricted and confidential, while it might be in some cases, but just because it's going to have me lose focus on things that might not matter as much to my success in my position. So define who should be seeing what in your business, and define these access and edit permissions on your files and documentation. Use a hierarchy that reflects your business structure. A lot of people still browse and look for information by clicking through folders and subfolders. Again, labeling it in a way that reflects how they know your business is going to help with finding and accessing that information a little bit easier. And again, make it easy to access. Find a central place that ideally is accessible on multiple devices, from a mobile device, through the web, from home, from the office, wherever they are, so there's no excuse to reference when in need. Great, 6 days of work done. Day 1, we set a goal. We wanted to identify our core processes, and we've involved in day 2 the right people. We've identified what they were, gave them a single name, assigned a process owner, and gave it a short description. Day 3, we mapped the 20%. What are those major steps in each process? We've involved our subject matter experts so they know that they're going to contribute on this as well. Day 4, we've prepared. We've built a template so we can very easily build that final layer. We settled on a style guide. And again, we've created that common terminology framework so everyone's referring to the same things in the same way. Day 5, added the instructions. Keep it high level again here as well. And the 3rd level, add a couple of best practices, guardrails, how to go from A to B, and avoid going into too much details. Use technology, AI assistants, screen recorders, or have new staff members assist you with building new documentation as they get onboarded. And finally, package it. Put it in a central place, easy to access, and have them look at the information that's relevant to them. So the second portion is training, and there's different layers of training I want you to bear in mind, because typically a lot of companies overlook that just initial training when you hire someone is probably not going to be enough. Over time, people tend to forget things. They might have gotten overloaded with too much information in those first weeks, and so haven't remembered everything, or things change over time, and so you need to retrain and reinforce certain information as you go. And so I want you to think about 3 layers. One is orientation. Just make sure that people understand what business that they've entered, what your company policies and values and mission is, all that stuff that obviously in EOS is important as well. And then the training itself. Make sure that they're being properly trained on your processes, the ones that are going to matter to their function and their role in your team, and make sure they can give you feedback as well. Feedback is very important to understand potentially where you still have gaps, where you can improve, or maybe where things were unclear. And then reinforcement over time. Retrain people regularly. Not just for compliance's sake. Some of you will probably need to hold certain safety training every 6 months or every year, but reoccurrence of process training is going to make sure that people remember these things for a long time. The first time around, they're going to forget a lot of things, and just making sure there's a cadence of how often you're going to retrain and on what subject is going to help you along the way. So day 7, I want you to think about training flows. Who, which team, or which role needs to be trained on what? Just map those 2 things. What are the different roles and what are the different subjects that they should need to know? Create that feedback loop so you can further improve what you've built out the first time around. Track the completion rates. Obviously, do not just assume that they've gone through all of this information, but make sure that you've got a system to look at how far they're along their learning journey and where potentially they get stuck. And finally, define a retraining schedule per topic. Some topics might need to be rescheduled more often, things that really matter to the outcome of a specific process. Others might be good to just look back at again every so often. And ultimately, what you're going to end up with is a flow. It's a training flow per subject and per role that's going to outline how you're going to have a training regimen in your business. An important part of training is testing. Just like tracking completion rates for accountability, testing and perhaps quizzing people is going to help make sure that they've actually retained and understood the information that you've shared with them. So use quizzes to test people on their knowledge. Do regular spot checks. Actually look at how are they performing this process and see if it aligns with how you want things done. And finally, offer additional coaching. A lot of the things that we talk about is that software like Whale is going to help you automate a lot of these things, which means that a lot of free time offers itself up for you to dedicate to more value add work like one-on-one coaching. It will allow you to identify potential gaps in people's knowledge and skill sets, and it's going to give you that time back that you previously were using to repeat the same things over and over again, and this time use it to better support those staff members. That's it. That's all there's to it when it comes to training. Again, day 7 will take some time by perhaps building that matrix of role per subject, the recurrence, and then day 8 about thinking of how are we going to test and quiz people. Good news here, there's great technology for this as well. At Whale, we give you the ability to create AI quizzes. So you do not need to think about the way you're going to ask questions and offer multiple answers. That's built in. And there's a lot of other free tools that will help you in those areas as well. So please use that technology to win back some of your time. And then finally, we've arrived at the final milestone, which is manage. It's the third part in the flywheel. After you've documented things, you've connected it to your training, you shared them, you trained your people on them. You need to make sure that all that information doesn't go stale and out of date and irrelevant over time, and people won't trust what you've built in the past anymore. So build a review process on day 9. Assign review ownership. And this is where having a process owner and your subject matter experts mapped early on will help you with assigning review ownership as well. Make them accountable for reviewing these topics every so often. Set a recurrence every month, every 6 months, that prompts then a reminder to look at the documentation, make sure it's still relevant, or make the necessary updates. And so having that list as an outcome of the different subjects owners and their time interval in which they need to be reviewed is again going to help with accountability moving forward. And we've arrived at day 10, which is spot and close the gaps. Reviewing the gaps in your subjects and teams. Again, you've gone through quizzes. You've hopefully looked at the results and you saw where things went wrong or where people made a couple of mistakes. Use that to build additional documentation, use that to offer additional coaching, use that data to further improve this process and this journey that you're on. Have the stats, have the statistics to hold everyone accountable, not just on the training side of things that they complete and the results on the quizzes, but again, also your subject matter experts and process owners. Are they reviewing these things over time? Are they doing the tasks that you've assigned them to? And then finally, what you'll end up with is having a process for continuous improvement. You've gone through the flywheel once, you've documented, trained people, managed, you've received feedback, you spotted gaps, and now you've got a lot of information to go through the flywheel again. Document again, improve, retrain people because things have changed, and again, review over time. And this is how you get that flywheel effect. That's how it keeps turning, and you end up in a business that continuously improves and have its team members follow along. And there you go. We've gone through everything that we wanted to. We've got the milestones of documenting, training, and manage done in 10 days, which seems a lot of work, but the worksheet in attachment will help you digest these things day by day. Obviously, at Whale, we purposely built software for this. Every step I outlined, Whale has the technology to assist you with. It's going to save you even more time than the things I explained to you. So obviously, come and try it for free at usewhale.io.